is the Leon Charney Report. And now, here is your host, Leon Charney.
I'm back. I have been in Gaza to see the Palestinian National Council approve or rather abrogate and wipe out totally the covenants against the destruction of Israel. I know many of you won't believe that because a lot of you don't believe they'll ever do it. I'm not saying they did or they didn't, but I witnessed what happened there, and there was a rush of hands that said that they abrogate and refute anything that says that Israel should be destroyed, obviously, and that it was a big event. President Clinton was there, and then we followed him in Israel, and we got a lot of film on it. But today we want to talk about that, plus what's going on with the impeachment. We brought on Charlie Rangel, who is probably the most formidable congressman in that, I'm not so sure, illustrious body anymore, called the Congress of the United States. And he was I'm sure he was at the debate, and we got to get his feelings on this. The country is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And absent war, I don't think anything has ever taken this country like this event. You agree, Charlie?
I agree. I really think that the American people, though, didn't wake up until after the House impeached. There's so many people that stop me in the street and say, he's got to be all right, isn't he? He's got to finish out his term, but they're not certain. And, of course, he's in good shape with the Senate. Excellent shape.
Is he going to make it, Charlie?
Yes, he'll make it. As a matter of fact, I don't understand why there's so much talk about a trial in the Senate. True, you have to go through the formalities of opening up the proceedings, and I can see why Senator Byrd, who is very concerned about protecting the integrity of the Senate, would say that he doesn't want to make any deals. But the truth of the matter is that if you take all of the allegations that were made in the House and accept them as being true, all of the scholars say that it doesn't rise to such a level that you should expel him from office. So why would there be a trial? Why would there be a censure? Why would there be a deal? He's got 71% of the American people approving.
73.
73. It goes up every day. So to me, he's in the driver's seat as long as he continues to do a good job as president. I don't see where the Senate will do anything at all, not even a censure.
I was at the White House the other day for one of those Christmas parties that the press goes to, and he showed the press who's the boss this time. Usually you come in and it's inside. He gave him a tent with a bunch of clowns. Maureen Dowd wrote in the New York Times today that she only got cookies and biscuits.
Is that right?
Yeah, and he didn't show up very much, and I can't blame him, because otherwise he would have a greeting line. He'd shake hands with everybody. And it'd really be hypocritical. I don't think he was in the mood to do it, and they shouldn't want it. And by the way, Bob Novak shows up, Tim Russett shows up, the loud guy, what's his name, Chris Matthews, he says hello to you, he practically thunders you know what I mean? All the guys were there who kill him on television, and they're ready to be there and be photographed with him. It's so hypocritical, and you got to go to see it, and that's why one of the reasons I go. And the feeling was, I talked to one of his top aides. This guy, as I see it today, will never admit to anything called the lie or perjury. He just won't do it. He's stone on that. I think he could wrap up a deal tonight if he would say that he'd want to do it. Let's take President Carter's deal or Ford's deal. I'm not sure he'll do it. I mean, this is Leon Charney speaking. It's not the Clinton, rather.
It's me speaking too. I don't think he should do it. If he had such a confusing description of what sex was, and it was put together by lawyers with the approval of the judge, and if within that description,
I firmly believe he believes it. I said it on Channel 11 about 3 months ago on Marvin Scott's show, that unless there was a full intercourse between two parties, a lot of people, when they grow up, young kids, are educated in the way that unless it is that way, it's not a sexual relationship. And if you go to religious schools, and I went to religious school, and you talk to people who had some kind of relationship with women, and it wasn't full intercourse, and they had guilt. It's a whole story about guilt or not guilt. They would feel that they were clean and they didn't violate any prohibitions. They didn't have sex.
If that's what she says, it wasn't intercourse. He says it's not intercourse. What is there to confess to that he hasn't already done? Right. I just don't see him
but Charlie,
saying he's sorry anymore.
You've been in the Congress how many years?
28 years.
All right. Did you ever see anything like that Judiciary Committee in your lifetime?
No, I never
mean,
saw
I knew
that.
Henry Hyde when I worked in the Senate. He's there a long time. I thought he was really a gentleman. I began to have an antipathy towards him. I thought he looked snide after a while. Things were broiling in me because I think it's unfair. It's not that I'm pro-Clinton. It's I'm pro the United States. I'm pro the Constitution. I'm pro what high crimes and misdemeanors are as a lawyer. And I can't stand what they were doing to the Constitution and what they were doing to Clinton because he was the object of what was happening. But the snideness in the remarks.
The hatred.
What the hell is going on there?
The vindictiveness. The right wing has really threatened the whole Republican Party. Some of the moderates that are there, just decent people that you never would expect would ever be voting against the Constitution the way they did. And they threaten them with committee assignment, subcommittee assignment. But the worst fear of all is an attack in the Republican primary by the right wing, which, of course, is heavily financed. And that, I think, was the straw that turned most of them against the president. But I was surprised to see where 4 Republicans said, I voted for impeachment, but I really didn't mean it.
Well, I was in Washington and had dinner with a couple of guys from the national press who tell me that Larry Flint, the great investigator, has 4 Republicans and 5 Republicans he's coming out with in January. And it's going to show there was a lot of philandering around. It's wild up there. Believe me, it is a wild scene.
Well, I think it's a sad day in the history of Congress that you could take the hatred and mean-spiritedness and make such a partisan issue out of it. And it allows Congress that follow to do the same type of thing. And if you start throwing censures in there, then every time you don't like a president, you can drive a censure count against the president. You know, it's not a parliamentary government. You don't like the president, you don't vote for him the second time out. And here's a guy that's got just broad-based support.
How did the right wing get so much control over the moderate Republicans?
Actually, I was on a program once, and I just asked this moderator, who do you think the Speaker is of the House of Representatives? And he said, Bob Livingston. I said, well, that's the problem. That's why the right wing gets control. Gingrich was so fed up with the right wing when they castigated him when he entered into the deal with the omnibus budget bill with Clinton. And he castigated them from the floor in calling them the correctness caucus, that everything just had to be just right. And they got him, they pulled his chain, and he caused him to quit. And he quit, but he is still the Speaker, and he exercised no leadership. Bob Livingston, who never did have the clout, he was just there, and he wasn't calling any shots. And so the person who was really in charge of
DeLay?
the whole thing was Tom DeLay.
And what kind of guy is he?
Well, I think that, you know, before he came to Congress, he was a pest exterminator. It must be something with the fumes, you know, because he's a mean little guy, I tell you. And it came across on the floor. It came across in the committee. It wasn't just a debate between 2 people like we had with the Persian War, where people just had different beliefs. They just don't like President Clinton and don't like what he represents. And they went after him on Whitewater, Travelgate, the FBI files, Vince Foster. They never stopped. And unfortunately, he always threw them a little red meat, you know, to keep them going.
I saw Hillary Clinton in Israel when I was over there, and I spoke to her about it. And I said, I had Liz Holtzman on the show. And, you know, first Liz, you know, who went through Watergate and that whole shtick.
We were on the same committee together.
You were on the committee. So I said that Liz said on the show that, you know, when Hillary said that it was the right wing of the Republican Party, everybody thought, well, she's looking for excuses and all. But today that she firmly believed it. I really believe it too.
Of course there has been. And when you take a guy like Henry Hyde, who was one of the nicest guys that we had in the Congress, who said in the beginning that he could not sit and chair a meeting and have an impeachment that's going to be partisan, that you can't, from a partisan point of view, charge a president. And that's exactly what he did do.
But what was the string on him? They wouldn't fund him? I mean, what is it, money, the right? What is it?
It's like
a
lynch mob, like a kangaroo court. It's the litmus test. Are you one of us? And unfortunately, I've seen too much of this, and you probably have too, where people are decent people individually, and yet they get together and they get this pack mentality, and they do things that they never would do individually. And that's what you had. Are you Republican or are you not a Republican? Which side are you on?
And the whole country was seeing this in color and seeing their Congress operate this way. It's awful.
And they did this in complete disregard of the public's feeling, which they knew. They voted against their constituents. So it was just like a group of pack dogs.
And they're starting to backpedal now. Ben Gilman, who's a decent guy, and some of his constituents called me today and said, you should talk about Ben Gilman. I says, I don't want to talk about Ben Gilman specifically, but he sure backpedaled very quickly. Well, I said we should impeach him, but let's not take him out. I said, it's like throwing a baseball out, but don't put on a glove. Anyway, cut for a minute, and we'll be right back. We got Charlie Rangel. He is the best, so don't leave us. Hopefully, with a new Congress, Chairman Ways and Means, he's going to write your tax bill. We're back talking with the one and only Charlie Rangel, who is a civil member of the House of Representatives. Hard to find today. And we're talking about, obviously, Bill Clinton and the impeachment business. Do you think Bob Livingston really resigned only because of his picadillos or his infidelity? There was a story behind that story.
He quit because he didn't have the votes. They came to him and told him, there was 12 votes they were holding back.
The wise men from the right side,
exactly,
who were the purists.
Exactly. And you know what was shocking, Leon? I felt sorry for the guy, of course, and anybody that's a target of what Flint is doing. And when he told the story and apologized, you had to feel sorry. But how the devil
Why did he disclose
is breaking your oath to your wife, where the marriage is made with God, more important than an oath that you make to a notary public? And why would all of the Republicans that are holier than thou about what the president has done stand up and cheer the guy and make him a hero because he's quit? He's cutting and running instead of staying there. I think Jerry Nadler said it. It's reached the point that that we have in sexual McCarthyism. Have you now ever had an affair outside of your marriage? It's got to be a criteria if they can run you out of public office.
And again, I saw it happen a little bit. I was out of the country, but you saw the right-wing Republicans starting to drift away from him right away when they heard about this.
Well, that's what he couldn't get. He couldn't win. He couldn't win the votes.
But Livingston.
Yes.
You know what seichel means in French,
No.
in Yiddish? It means have a little common sense. If you know you're out there and you're going to try a man for having an infidelity or some kind of, how the hell do you take on a speakership?
It's a strange thing what happens to a human being's mind, how you can forget all the unpleasant things that had happened to you and all the favorable things for your character you can remember. And that's what makes good hypocrites. They really don't believe that they're guilty. It's you're guilty.
So he started to be intoxicated with his own perfume.
Well, he sure smelled. I got a whiff of something else on that floor, I tell you that. It's sad, though, because it makes it rough for all of us. Everyone should be faithful, good fathers and good husbands. But if you start playing that sex game with every public official, who in the heck wants to get involved? And we have a hard enough time with not having campaign finance reform, where only the wealthy will be able to get involved, with all of the investigations that people have to go through for appointments. It becomes a heavy burden on someone. And if they're willing to do it, a lot of them don't want their families to have to go through this, especially the kids.
So you were there Saturday in the House. You probably never in your wildest dreams believed that you'd sit through an impeachment of Bill Clinton. You sat through Richard Nixon.
Never got to that with Richard Nixon.
And you had to raise your vote and vote no against an impeachment.
We stormed out there when the Democrats did, when they didn't allow us to vote for censure. Had the Republicans allowed a vote for censure, the impeachment never would have gone through, you know.
That is terrible.
You know, but they just said, either you got to say that the guy's innocent or you got to vote for impeachment. And that was the option that they left to us. And of course, a lot of Republicans felt they were stuck with voting for impeachment because they wanted something less. But the dramatic thing was Bob Livingston, because he's not much of an orator, and he was mumbling on the floor. You could hardly hear what he was saying. And when he said that President Clinton should resign, well, Democrats, in their normal, impolite, robust way, started saying, "You resign, you resign," you know. And he was putting his hand there, which would indicate, "Be quiet and let me speak." But what he was really saying, "I'm going to if you give me a chance." And it hit us like a ton of bricks. But you can't give in to those people. He really should have fought back. That was his first test as to what kind of speaker he would have been.
He was a weak leader.
And they all are going to be weak when you have the power of a small group of people that don't mind taking political hits. They don't mind losing.
You know, performed exceedingly well, and I think has risen to a tremendous level, is Gephardt. His speech, I thought, was a tearjerker, you know?
And
you know, somebody said to me in Washington about Gephardt, he says, "I never liked the guy." You know why? Because how can you like a guy who looks good in the morning and looks the same way at night? He hasn't done much all day.
He gave tremendous speeches, but when we left the floor that day and we went to the White House and we spoke with the president, when it was over, they hugged each other. And Leon, that was historic too.
Sure.
And it was a very moving experience to see that happen. And as Democrats, having lost on the floor, it was a very bonding thing to see the leadership say, you know, and he was saying thanks. And when he said, I told him, I said, "You know, Mr. President, the question of resignation is not yours to make. You have been elected and you have an agenda, and people have confidence in you, so you can't even think about it." And he looked at me and he says, "I would have given anything to not have all of you had to go through this." And I'm telling you, and he paused, you know, and you just felt empathy for the guy. Yeah,
it was terrible. But on the other hand, it shows, you know, it shows the opposite of Livingston, what a great leader this character is. He is a great leader, and she too.
She is fantastic. I told the president that we're trying to draft his wife for the United States Senate. He said, "But she doesn't even live there." I said, "Neither did Bobby Kennedy live there. He couldn't vote for himself." And I listed the support she had. He said, "Well, what is the downside?" I said, "Well, I don't know how to say this, but you could be the downside." But I repaired it. I repaired it to make certain that he understood it was only because she would be running as the first lady, as opposed just a candidate. But she is so good. I cannot think of anyone that helped us to close the gap in terms of the number of Democrats that were elected and reelected. And I crisscrossed this country, And just to bump into her at these different rallies, she is so good. Then I went with her to Dominican Republic. I went with her on a later date to Puerto Rico after the hurricane. And the empathy, the knowledge, the respect, the credibility that she has wherever she goes, she's just electric and so well informed.
You think there is a chance she might run for Senate in New York? Was
that
that your idea, by the way?
Well, was certainly a lot of people who've been talking about it. I don't know who started it, but as soon as I heard, yes,
did you
of
talk
course.
to her directly about it?
Yes, I did.
And what'd she say?
She said very interesting, and when I was in Santo Domingo, she was with a group, and some lady says, I hear you're going to run for the U.S. Senate in New York. She said, don't tell me that Congressman Rangel got to you, too. And so she said, I answer that question by saying, I'm not dealing with political questions now. And they say, well, you should. We are women, and we are really concerned when we find someone as bright as you, as intelligent as you. You can't afford to let us down. And I stayed out of it. But there's so many people that respect her so much, and she now has shown the depth of the strength that she has.
The way she walks, Charlie, with that focus, it's amazing. You know, the character, the strength in her, you can see it. And you talk to her, and you have much more than I have, but when I talk to her, she's focused right on the issue, and she's smart, and there's a charm about her. People don't see it as much as we do unless you meet her up front. And she's got a terrific future. She
came to visit us, the day of the vote, just to thank us.
Oh, yeah, the Congress.
Yeah, 8 o'clock in the morning, Democratic caucus. And she says, I want you to know I love my husband. I love him very much. I mean, hey,
I believe her. Huh? I believe her.
I do, too.
I see the way they interact, and I can understand everything that happened with them. And some great doctor told me that all great men have extra libido, otherwise they wouldn't be great men. We'll take a break on that one.
You better take a break on that one.
We're back. We're talking with Charlie Rangel, the Charlie Rangel, one of the senior members of the House of Representatives. They used to be House of Representatives. I'm not sure that's true anymore. They don't represent the public. The public said we don't want him impeached. We want him censured, and your House voted to impeach him.
And they got to pay for it, too. They got to pay big time.
Not in rubles either, huh?
Not in rubles.
In power.
Yeah, I think the American people. I've had people come up to me and they said, I've voted Republican all my life, but I'm not going to do it now because I've been embarrassed. And they said it wasn't Clinton, it's what they did to the presidency, what they did to the Constitution.
Yeah, that's right. And the reporters in Washington are dreadful, as we talked about now. One channel was reporting out, they had done a snap survey, and they said, Tim Russett said, Tim Russett, who's a nice guy, used to work for Mario Cuomo. I think bought an apartment for me once. He's a really nice guy. But Tim Russett, the guru of the world, said that if you reach 50%, where the people say he should resign, it's all over for him. We did a snap poll, and we're 46.4. So this is Saturday afternoon. It looks like he may have to resign. Then the next morning they wake up, Fox takes a poll, and USA Today, and everybody, all of a sudden it's 64% don't want him to resign, 32% say maybe, keeps rising on him. But right away they were ready to push. It's crazy. There's something going on. We did a show here 2 weeks ago, New York Magazine, you probably saw it, called Impeach the Press. And what Clinton is showing is that elite, this cultural character, Sally Quinn's and all, can't run Washington. I mean, they can run Washington, but they can't run the country. They can't tell your people in Harlem how to live and how to vote. And that's a very important thing that's going on, and they can't take it. You know that gang up there.
Well, with this talk program, isn't the ratings based on just how lambastic you can be? And, everyone is beating up on the president and the press, but everyone but the people.
I saw one, I'm going to use foul language, I saw one idiot on one of these television shows saying that President Clinton should call Larry Flint and tell him,
heard that.
Take away his right of First Amendment, the free speech. That place is going on.
I heard that. Someone said, if you want to bring peace to this thing, then you have to pull back the people that are tearing into the Republicans and tell them not to do it to the Republican members.
You believe this? It's unbelievable. This guy wears a bow tie. His bow tie nearly snapped. I couldn't believe it. Take away. I don't condone Larry Flint. Let him publish what he wants, what he doesn't want. But to ask the president to stop him, I mean, that's probably a violation of our Constitution. That abrogates his right of free speech. It's crazy here.
But for this group, there's nothing that the president has ever done or will do to satisfy him.
Right.
They really show it, Leon. They hate this guy, just a small group. And because of their power and their influence, they drive the agenda. I hope that this new speaker survives. I've worked with him on a drug issue.
Yeah, what's
I've worked
his name?
with him.
Nobody knows his
Dennis Hastert. And he's, they call him the coach because he used to be a wrestler coach in high school. And you never know who he is because he's a very quiet-spoken guy, very seldom goes to the floor. And he could be considered a bridge builder. But what the test is, when they say what the party line is, and he tries to cooperate with the Democrats, we got things that you cannot do as Republicans. So there's Social Security, campaign finance. If we're going to reform the tax code, the Medicare, the Patients' Bill of Rights, you have to work with Republicans and Democrats if you're going to get anything done. And these next 2 years could be really rough as people who have spurned the president, castigated the president, tried to kick him out of office, now they're running to have their picture taken with him, you know, for the next election.
Well, I hope that the wrestling coach has better control than the pest control guy.
You make it sound so petty, but
if he can't control the pest control guy, you're not going to see much bipartisanship.
Well, he hasn't said anything. I don't think he's made a public statement yet. I called him and I talked with him yesterday morning, and he appreciated it, but he's not a very outgoing guy. You're not going to see a fella that wants to hear himself talk like Gingrich. And they brought him in there because he's well respected. But has he got a job to do to see whether or not we can get any legislation out of the House? Of course, I'm trying to get 6 of them to convert to Democrats, so I won't have to wait until the year 2000 to be chairman. Just 6 Republicans, you know.
Let me ask you a question. Have you talked to Moynihan about this?
No. No one's had a chance to speak with the senior senator from New York on this issue.
You have any doubts about how he would go on the issue with the president?
No, all the scholars, everybody has said that there's nothing in these allegations, as serious as they are, that would warrant considering impeaching the President of the United States. It's just not there. I think that all Senator Byrd wants is just to respect the history of the Senate. It's their charge constitutionally, and he doesn't want Dole and Ford and a whole lot of people pulling the strings on the United States Senate.
Wants it to come through the Senate.
Whatever they do, let him stay in the background and let him do his job. But how you going to censure a guy when he said that he's sorry and you don't have the votes for impeachment? And then ask him to go to the well and sign papers and turn over his pension. He's in the driver's seat.
All right. We'll see if your prediction runs. Israel.
Boy, I was asking you earlier that Bibi was going to get back in, that he stepped aside, it was going to be special election, and he seemed so confident that he would be restored to Prime Minister. You said it's all over?
Well, Bibi has got to run again. His party is breaking up, basically. Meridor, who was a stalwart of the Likud party, announced yesterday he's running for prime minister. Benny Begin, who is the son of Menachem Begin, is announcing that he's leaving the Likud party, the party that his father founded, and going to run possibly as a member of the right wing. Ehud Olmert, who's the mayor of Jerusalem, condemned Bibi yesterday for attacking Meridor. It sounds like the House of Representatives. You talk Limor Livnat, these are all names that my audience may know is the Minister of Communication, obviously a female. She wants to run against Bibi in a primary.
How many candidates do you have?
They could have about 7 running for prime minister now, and the one that they don't know, who really is ahead in the polls, is a fellow named Amnon Libkin-Shahak, who's the former chief of staff of the Israeli Defense Forces, and he's technically in the army. So he has to resign from the army, but in the polls, he defeats everybody. He could be...
Oh, yes, he's a hero. I've seen pictures of him.
Right.
But what are the issues? Why was he forced to resign? Was it the peace
Y
process?
plantation, yeah. He couldn't stand up to it. The right wing just tore him apart.
I thought his foreign minister, Sharon, was placed there to hold on to the conservative votes.
Sharon is, who do I compare him to in the United States? It's a tough one.
Is that bad?
Yeah, Sharon is not bad. I mean, he has a tough time with credibility tests. I mean, he doesn't do well on multiple choices, you know. And Sharon may himself try to run for prime minister.
Well, are they saying that Bibi has given up too much to the Palestinians?
Yes, too much. Y plantation. He couldn't, basically when he brought it through his cabinet, he only had 8 people in his cabinet who voted for the plan. He was elected on a coalition of right-wing settlers and religious parties. And these parties are stalwarts against Y plantation and basically against not against the peace process, but against giving the rights at this point to Palestinians. And Bibi took polls like President Clinton. He found out there's a center in Israel that really wants the peace. So the Labor Party gave him a safety net, which meant they would not bring his government down as long as he was moving the peace process ahead. When Bibi saw that his own government, which was on by 1 vote, 61, he needs 61 to stay in power. He had 61. He had some breakaways from the right wing, so his government was collapsing. So then he started to make these very tough statements, and very tough statements against the Palestinians, and basically he had to freeze the Y plantation deal. Otherwise he couldn't move forward.
But you said you were there when the Palestinians voted to strike the language of having a goal to destruction of Israel. Doesn't that kind of put the peace process back on track?
Well, Shimon Peres said that they had done it 2 years ago, and this was merely confirming what they did 2 years ago. So if you want to believe that the Arafat and the PLO are in good faith, you believe it. If you want to believe that they're not in good faith, you're never going to believe it, no matter what they do, and that's the real problem. And there's a fear in the country, and I sensed it, even from liberal people. They don't know how they're going to live together, the two countries. There is a de facto Palestinian state today. When you go down and see Arafat, he's a president, he's got the honor guards, he's got an airport now. They're living in a sense as a de facto state, and Israelis don't know how to combine that yet. Now, Ehud Barak, who is the Labor Party designate chairman, and he will run against Bibi. He's a very formidable guy. He was head of the Israeli Defense Forces and a very liberal guy, but he also has to watch himself because there's a general fear, and I'm sure the Palestinians have the same fear. No one knows how to live. They're so close. You've been in Israel. The borders are so close that they're not sure how to do it and how to live together. So what you really need is a period of gestation where the two peoples can really get together. And basically, economically, they have to help one another. The Palestinian state will not be able to exist without a coexistence in economics with the Israelis. They work there. There's a lot of tariffs and traffic that goes on between the two countries. What have you? I can't call it. It's an authority right now and Israel. And the people are very nervous, and the country shows it.
How can the Jewish people ever support any government if it doesn't appear as though there's security or that the terrorism continues? I mean, when I was there, there's just no answer. If you cannot say that your children and your grandchildren are going to see peace and not be able to walk the streets.
Well, you're right, and the feeling is that Arafat really controls the mechanisms of terrorism. And the feeling is that he can control whether they... Arafat, you know, it's an interesting I read two interesting books. I was away for about 10 days on the plane. One was about the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin by a famous editor in Israel named Karten, I think. The other one was the biography of Yasser Arafat. And I was tracing events in my life, because I was involved in a lot of this stuff, versus what Arafat was doing. And it's very hard to pin Arafat down. He's been yes to this and yes to that. And he's very deft in what he's doing, and it's hard to pin him down. And he's survived, and he's done a lot. And the people there, when I was in this council meeting, they loved him. And maybe that's the way he survived. But if you go back on his record, and I'm sure if you look back at anybody who's had this type of history, their records are here and there. You take Camp David. He was for Egypt. And when Saddam was assassinated, he moved away. Then he moved into Mubarak. During the Persian Gulf War, he went with Iraq, Arafat. Don't forget, in 81, Black September, when he went against Hussein. Then he came back and he started kissing Hussein.
But terrorism, why would that be in the best interests of the Palestinians? I would assume that...
It's not. It's not.
But you say that some people believe he could control terrorism. Why would he not want to if he could?
Because when Bibi Netanyahu came into government, they thought that he would be very right-wing, and they thought that that he would not go forward with the Oslo agreements. So who knows what happened over there? The better question is, Shimon Peres was defeated because of two great terrorism attacks in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem. So the question is, if he could have stopped them at that point, why didn't he do it? That's your question.
Yes.
I don't have the answer. I don't know.
Well, what does this do now to the peace process with all of these kids?
Freezes it. Nothing will move now until the election.
When will the election be?
They have to agree, but the feeling is it'll be sometime in April, right before May 4th, because May 4th is a very big date. That's the date that Arafat might declare an independent Palestinian state. And Bibi would like to use that time to in a sense, batter the Palestinians. Bibi will run on a platform of battering the Palestinians. Barak will run on a platform of fulfilling the Y agreements and the Oslo agreements. He'll say they may not be the best, but that's what we signed on to. And the people are nervous. And Bibi's a terrific campaigner. Now, you got two crazy events there. Arthur Finkelstein, who did a great job for Al D'Amato in the last election, and for Dennis Vacco, is going to run Bibi's campaign, which he always does. And James Carville is running Ehud Barak's campaign.
But these are not inter-party primary disputes. These are all candidates that will be out there running.
Yeah, Barak is running for sure. Bibi Netanyahu is running for sure. We had the mayor of Tel Aviv on this show, Rani Milo. He says he's running also. Merido, as of yesterday, is also running. Benny Begin may run by tomorrow, by the time this tape plays. Lamar Livnat may challenge Bibi inside. It's wild over there. It's really wild.
Will you be showing any of your TV coverage, the tapes that you took on your program?
That's sure.
Do you announce them ahead of time when we gotta see it?
After we put you on, we'll start coming in with the Palestinians at Gaza, because it's interesting to see the trepidation of trying to make peace between two peoples. We did it in Camp David, but we had governments and we had divided land. The Egyptians knew where they were. You know, Sadat really wanted to get back Sinai, and he was a great man. He was a tremendous statesman. Right now, it's so close that people don't know how they're going to live. And Oslo, in my opinion, I've said this 100 times, was done incorrectly by Yitzhak Rabin. What should have happened is this PLO covenant should have been obliterated 5 years ago. Rabin should have recognized them, and they should be sitting in Geneva and talking about economic infrastructure so that these people could exist. But it's done. It's over. It's history. Clinton's put a lot of time into it. There was a lot of investment of everybody's time, but there's fear. And you can't blame Israelis, and you can't blame Jews. On the other hand, if you're a humanist, you got to think that Palestinians have a right to exist also. So they need a great guy like you. Or maybe Gingrich is not busy now, and Livingston. Gingrich and Livingston, you go over to Israel, become masters of arbitration in this Gingrich, by the way, was very close to Bibi Netanyahu. The Israelis feel, at least the right-wing Israelis feel, it's a big loss.
I never did understand how we could get our Central Intelligence agents there to try to prevent terrorism or in support of the peace, but obviously it hasn't been successful. I thought we would be a buffer.
That was going to be a part of the Y agreements. Yeah. They were going to make sure that there was no terrorism taking place. People are not very excited about that in Israel because they've always been independent of any outside forces being involved. But so far, I don't think it's going to happen anyway at this point.
You couldn't have a demilitarized zone where...
There's no land. There's not enough. We do have that in Sinai, but there's no land. They may have borders and blockades. I don't know what's going to happen over there. And believe me, no one else does.
Well, this election doesn't seem like it's going to help anybody because people are going to see who can outdo the other one.
And you may come out with the same result. What happened was all the religious parties that ran away, it's the same as the Republicans. Yesterday, they ran away from Bibi. Coming back today, say, well, of course he's better than Barack, so we got to come back to you. And what you were hearing, he was just trying to put it together. But I think they got to go through an election.
So how long were you there?
I was there for about 5 days. I stayed 2 days after President Clinton left, and I feel the temperament. Talk to some people, do some interviews, and believe me, on our show, you'll see a right-wing guy who's a really terrific guy, but he's a real believer. He's an ideologue, and you'll see the left wing, in the same country, and it's really divided. It's like the Judiciary Committee. Believe me.
Do you see where American Jews will be playing any role in the upcoming election?
Yeah, definitely. On this program, be many people who feel that the Palestinians should never have a state. They feel that you can't trust the Arabs, and they have some rights to that feeling because there's been a lot of terrorism against them. And there'll be some people who watch the show who think that, well, you got to try peace because if you don't, where are you going? But our position on this show has been that let the Israelis decide. Me, as an American, can never decide. The guy who's paying the tax and giving his blood.
And it's their security. It's right there.
He's the guy that calls it.
Right.
So we Americans, we can support, but we can't make that decision. We got to cut for a break, and we're going to talk about an easy subject, Russia and Iraq, and we're going to bring on the head of the TASS Bureau. TASS used to be a communist news agency. Today, I don't know what it is, but we'll bring him back. He gets paid in dollars, I hope. We'll be right back. We're back with Charlie Rangel, and we brought on Alexei Berezhkov. I hope I pronounced it Berezhkov? Yes. He's bureau chief for TASS news agency.
TASS.
I'm really worried. You get paid in dollars or rubles?
Here, dollars, of course.
Thank God. Don't move. What are you thinking now? We have a member of Congress here. What do you think about the United States now? Russia was pretty upset with the Iraqi bombings, weren't they?
Well, you know, it's our standing policy for a long time that we are against military muscles while playing things in policy. So not only Russia but also China and France and a lot of countries against the military solution of the crisis. Maybe because of that Russia had so many wars in the past and suffered so much from all that kind of military stuff that we're against it. I don't know, maybe it's in our culture.
You know, if I remember correctly, Charlie, you were also against bombing, am I right?
Yes, unless you can tell me what you're going to achieve and what your goals are going to be, how many people have to die, if you know where the biochemical plants are, if you bomb them, you're endangering the civilian life. But you should tell the observers why you're there. But the thing that gets to me most is I think every president should go to the United States Congress. I don't know why they would not consider this war. Whenever one of our military are in harm's way, that's war if you can get shot. Now, once the president makes the decision, we have to come together to support the troops. But
did you ever hear anything like what Trent Lott said when
no, that's
you know what I'm talking about,
ridiculous.
Alexei? Trent Lott made a statement. You would know, well, you would know about it, but Charlie would be more informed. Basically, when a president puts soldiers in harm's way, everybody unites behind him.
Yes.
And here, Trentlock didn't back the president.
And Solomon didn't either, but Solomon changed his position.
He's from
And
New
they
York.
were the first, I understand that they were the first, Trent and Solomon, to link the process of impeachment with the bombing.
Exactly.
This is
I
a
wanna
very
ask you
important
about
thing
that.
from my point of view.
Tell us about that. Do you think that President Clinton used the timing of that bombing to help him stave off an impeachment?
It's not only my personal opinion.
Right.
The thing is that when such two big issues, political issue, comes together at the same time, the impeachment and the bombing, you cannot, you cannot think of other ways but linking these two things. I cannot, and nobody cannot imagine how that Mr. President wouldn't think about the repercussions of such a thing as ordering the bombing of Iraq.
All right, how angry are the Russian leaders about what the United States did?
Well, nobody asked, nobody called Russian leaders, nobody asked, not advice, I'm not speaking about advices.
But if they call, is Yeltsin functioning today?
Yeltsin functioning, yes.
He
Yeltsin functioning. He showed it well recently by firing
They say that's
his.
a double of him.
He has Primakov. He has Primakov now behind him. So these people are thinking and they are functioning. The answer would be that no, we are against the bombing. It's for sure.
Didn't we support the initial bombing, though?
The initial bombing? No,
Yeah.
we didn't. We never support the use of force in
There's a
such
big
a way.
economic tie-in here because it's oil and Russia. There's a lot of sale of oil between Iraq and Russia, so it's a big economic issue. Am I correct, Alexei?
Yes, it's very big. It's a very big economic issue, and never forget that Iraq owes us billions of
Right.
dollars. We can. I don't really know. It's for military equipment, for other things. But the problem of oil is very important and very funny in other sense. If you know that the United States is the biggest importer of Iraqi oil now these days.
Really?
It's according. Yes, I'm telling you because it was yesterday on wires. So it's according to UN experts. The problem is that this formula of oil for food,
third country?
oil for food, yes, it's through Russia, of course.
Right.
So oil for food, and the United States is the biggest importer, the sole importer of Iraqi oil now. So, according to the U.S. Energy Department, it's the fifth. The Iraq is the fifth major source of imported oil to the United States.
Did you know that, Charlie?
No.
They were going through Russia?
No, I can see why they would be opposed to the bombing.
When the bombing started, a lot of people abroad, not in the United States but abroad, they always think about some kind of conspiracy. It's something should be behind it.
That's
It's usual.
Right.
So, and also there were a lot of reports on that no big oil refinery or oil pipeline was hampered, was destroyed. So why? And well, it's up to you to tell us.
So George Bush made a deal with Clinton because Bush used to be in the oil business, not to touch the oil things.
Well, it's maybe ridiculous, but really people think about it.
This world is going nuts. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give up my career and go to work for Charlie as an unpaid advisor so we can study all these problems with the power of the United States government because this world is getting nuts. And Charlie Rangel is an impressive member of Congress.
Yeah.
This is an enlightenment to him to know how Iraq is playing with the economics through Russia. And he's the guy one day is going to have to vote how much aid the Russians get, and you're going to need a lot of aid, and I'm not being a wise guy about it.
Of course.
I want to ask you one question. We've got 1 second here. You get angry at the United States, so what happens? What do? You call back your ambassador?
Well, we called our ambassador from the United States, from Britain.
Right.
What else can we do? Well, it's just show. It's a mere apologize.
All countries do that. It's a
Yes,
way
it's-
diplomatically to
yes,
show you
but I can assure you that yesterday they were called back, so so it's okay. And I know that Mrs. Albright, she's going to Moscow in the second part of January, well, to sort out all these
Did
problems.
Russia support the agreement that the United Nations had with Iraq and the inspections and all of those
What
things?
agreement?
The agreement that they had when they stopped the bombing before, when we were about
Well,
to
we were
bomb.
close to war, and then we stopped, and then...
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, but now he's defying everybody again. So
Yes, now it's a process of defining what's going on with this UNSCOM, this commission.
All right, we got to call everybody back. We're running out of time. Charlie, thanks a million for coming on. Merry
Welcome
Christmas
home.
to you.
Happy Hanukkah.
My pleasure to have you. Alexei,
Thank you.
next time we'll give you a little more time, but we
Merry
didn't
Christmas.
talk to you.
Nice to meet you, too.
I'm talking fast. It's Ramadan also, in case you forgot. Hanukkah's over. And whatever you're doing, have a great time. We'll see you next week.